This is Jeff with Living in Arizona, and today we are going to talk about Arizona history, the road to statehood. And this is coming in as a request from Jason Gillian. I would definitely enjoy a video of how Arizona went from just a territory to this booming state. There is a lot of information when you go into history like this, so I'm going to try to move fast and efficiently so that you walk away from here understanding more about the state of Arizona if you're going to live here or, if you're just stopping through for a quick visit. So, if you're new here, do subscribe to Living in Arizona and turn on the bell if you have an interest in this state. So, before we get started, let's go ahead and show some maps of what Arizona used to look like back in the day. Well, this is the American Southwest. One thing you're going to want to familiarize yourself with is the Gasden Purchase. The Gasden Purchase was when this was a big part of what became Arizona's territory, or Arizona's transition from territory to state in, I believe, 1912. But so you can see this before Arizona became a state. It was once formerly. It's gone through a couple different names, but part of New Mexico. So this was once part of Mexico, and then it evolved to be a part of New Mexico, and then eventually it would become Arizona. You could see California here, which used to be called Alta California, and even this whole area used to be called New Spain. This is where the missions were set up by the Padres in California. You know, if you ever go to California, you can go to several different missions from San Juan Bautista all the way down to San Juan Capistrano. There's many of them, but this is an amazing history that takes place here, and Arizona was a big part of that history. We're going to also talk about Santa Anna, who was the general who I believe he was the one who defeated Davy Crockett at the Alamo in Texas. So there's a lot of history involved in all of the what they call the Manifest Destiny. And basically the Manifest Destiny was in 1849, hence the reason they call them the 49ers, the San Francisco football team called the 49ers, is because in 1849 a bunch of people came to California to go mine gold in them their hills. And that was the gold rush. That's why they call them the 49ers. But in 1847, thereabouts, was when they found the first signs of gold in Sutter's Mill, which is just outside of Sacramento. But that eventually was what what Washington, D.C. was looking for to unify the Manifest Destiny, which is sea to shining sea. So to connect the Atlantic and the Pacific was part of America's destiny. That's why they call it Manifest Destiny. From sea to shining sea. You remember Lewis and Clark and all those guys. So we're going to dive in and talk about how Arizona fits into all of that in the big history and the big scope of the gold rush that eventually led to it, and how Arizona got lumped in there with that. So you can see right here, here's a map of Phoenix way back in 1885. You could see it was small. I mean, back here you have, I think this is looking north. I don't know exactly, but if it's looking north, that would be formerly known as Squaw Peak. So you can see all this is built up now. I wish I could zoom in a little bit, but it doesn't look like this map's going to let me. You can just, if you wanted to see this bird's eye view of Phoenix back in 1885, just type in Phoenix 1885 map, and you could see the canals right here. It was just a farming community where they were using the Salt River to basically the Native American tactics to build the metropolitan area of Phoenix. And so let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit more. So the history of Arizona. Arizona was once part of the Sonora, Mexico, the state of Sonora, Mexico, which is from 1822. But the settled population was small in 1848. Under the terms of Mexican secession, the United States took possession of Arizona above the Gila River and the Mexican War, which became part of the territory of New Mexico by means of the Gadsden Purchase. The United States secured the northern part of the state of Sonora, what is now Arizona, south of Gila River in 1854. The reason I bring up the Alamo with Davy Crockett was because when Santa Anna, the general for the Mexican army, led the Mexican revolt against the Alamo in San Antonio, that basically ignited a firestorm across Texas, because Texas at the time was its own territory. It wasn't part of the United States. I forgot the president at the time. I want to say Samuel Jackson. I could get it wrong. I don't have that off the top of my head. I saw it, but the point is that they were already plotting to take Texas, and then when Santa Anna basically did that, Sam Houston, who was in Houston, was rallying the troops to get ready to fight back and take back San Antonio, and then eventually the United States jumped in on that, and instead of taking the United States north of the Nueces River, they ended up taking the United States north of the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande runs through, I believe it starts in northern New Mexico or southern Colorado. It's hard to tell where all the tributaries come from. But when that war happened, the United States sent the cavalry down there. I want to say Robert E. Lee was even part of that, where the United States marched into Mexico City, stuck its flag in the ground, but gave back Mexico to Mexico after the conquest. You can look it up. It was the Battle of Santa Cruz, the Mexican-American War. But the history behind that was the United States just wanted what was north of the Rio Grande, and they wanted California, which is where Arizona got lumped into that. So you can see there's a great history here between the Mormon battalions, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, or some other things that you guys are going to want to familiarize yourself with. But to the north, Arizona was nominally part of Alta California and fragmented of Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico. Together with the help of the Pima and the Papago militia, these were Native American tribes that were fighting with the Americans. The garrison provided a little protection from hostile Apache population to the east of the San Pedro River and north of the Gila River. If we go into the map here, I can show you, this is the Gila, okay? This is Gila National Forest, and Gila River actually runs through San Carlos. This is where Apache stronghold is. So the Apaches were over here in San Carlos. And you can see right here is the Gila River. You can go on the map and follow the Gila River all the way into New Mexico. But this was a big river that was part of the establishment of Arizona, the history in Arizona. So you can see Fort Apache Reservation. And if you want to see what the Apaches' kind of history was, you can also get a good scope on that. You can see this here on ApacheStronghold.com. They kind of talk about it from their perspective, which is important because, you know, if you only get it from one side of the story, that's the only side of the story you're going to get, right? And so you have these Native Americans here. You have Geronimo. Okay, Geronimo was the tall one here, far right. Let's see if I got another picture of Geronimo. Looks like that's the only picture I have of Geronimo right now, but it's Geronimo right there. You could see here's Cochise, another one of, or that's Naichi. He's the son of Cochise, who was a chief, Apache chief. Here we go with, here's some more pictures. This is Apache armed resistance ends, Geronimo surrenders. This was when the cavalry and the Apaches kind of came together. The Apaches were known for scalping people. So when they would defeat the people, they would take their heads of hair off. Okay, so that was what they did. They would scalp the head. That's how come if you ever hear people say scalp them, that's what they're talking about. Here's a picture of Geronimo, a little bit more up close, I think. Oop, well that didn't work. But that's a picture of older Geronimo. As you can see, he was a gentleman in this picture here, taking pictures with some younger Apache women. And here's a picture of Geronimo. He was a fierce warrior. Geronimo was one brave dude. I mean, there's stories. I mean, this guy, even at the time, he was known as quite the amazing chief, Geronimo. Like I said, you can even see Cochise. But then you have cliff dwellings. This is Montezuma's castle, so the Native American history is very rich. This is in central Arizona. You can see these cliff dwellings that run all across New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona. They have them in Mesa Verde in southeastern Colorado. So check those out. This is how they used to live in these cliffs. They also have them in Canyon de Chelly. You know, you can look at all that stuff. And then if you guys wanted to know about some other stuff on the history of Arizona, we'll talk about the where Arizona actually gets its name. And you guys are probably wondering that probably early on in the video. But the state's name appears to originate from an earlier Spanish name, Arizonac, derived from the O'odham name of Alisonac. meaning small spring, which initially applied only to an area near the silver mining camp of Planchas de Plata, Sonora, which is actually in Sonora, Mexico. So where Arizona actually gets its name is from a village in Sonora, Mexico. So their pronunciation sounded like Arizona. The area is still known as Alisonec in the Ohodom language. Another possible origin is the Basque phrase Heritzona, the good oak, as there were numerous Basque shepherds in the area. A native Mexican of Basque heritage established the Rancheria village of Arizona between 1734 and 1736, current Mexican state of Sonora. So the name really comes from Sonora, Mexico. You can see that there. Now you got Lost Dutchman gold mine. We can do a whole video on this. I mean, this is a subject all in of itself. People go out there, they try to find where the German immigrant Jacob Waltz, who purportedly discovered in the 19th century and kept its location secret, Dutch mine, was a common American term for a German-Dutch English congate. Okay. The Lost Dutchman is perhaps the most famous lost mine in American history. So there's a gold mine up there in the Superstition Mountains area near Apache Junction is basically what it is. So if you ever see this mountain here, it's called Weaver's Needle. People go out there and they try to find the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Like I said, it's a whole video all in of itself. Let me know in the comments if you want me to expedite that video through here. But it's not too far away from where I live, by the Superstition Mountains. Also, Arizona history, if you're going to come here, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater is, he ran for Republican nominee for president in 1964, despite the loss in a landslide. He was a part of the legacy of the New Deal and fought for a conservative coalition against the New Deal coalition, although he had rejected the New Deal. Although he had supported earlier civil rights legislation, he notably opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So get to know Barry Goldwater. Again, there's a whole video that could be done just on Barry Goldwater and who he was, but he was really one of the most prominent people coming up in Arizona. They have areas around here called Goldwater. So you'll see Barry Goldwater High School. Barry Goldwater died at 89 years old in 1997. Another guy to familiarize yourself with is going to be Frank Lloyd Wright. You'll see up in North Phoenix, Scottsdale, Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard, Taliesin West. Again, another video just to talk about Frank Lloyd Wright. But he's a architect. Arizona State University holds him in high regard. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff to know about Frank Lloyd Wright. But for the most part, you're going to want to know about places like Tombstone, Bisbee. This is in southeast Arizona near Mexico, really, by Nogales. Location of Tombstone in Cochise County, obviously named after the chief Cochise. But that's kind of close to Pima County, which is where Tucson is, but not quite. So you can see there's a lot of stuff to know about that. Fort Huachuca, also known as Camp Huachuca, that's down there near the Santa Cruz Valley. This is a big place where the cavalry was posted up back when they were trying to take the manifest destiny of the United States when they were securing all that stuff. If you wanted to learn about the Mexican-American War, I can also make a video on that. I studied that in college, and I got 100% basically on like an A+ on the research paper. So I know the Mexican-American War pretty good. I also studied California history in college. I know the whole thing pretty good. There's a lot of stuff that I could probably share with you that you would say, hey, that was a lot of information. But as far as the state of Arizona goes, there's a lot more to it. There's Prescott, Sedona, Navajo Nation. But this is only one video, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. So hopefully this kind of at least gets a little bit of information out there. I could even do a whole video on the history of Phoenix. That's a heck of a good video. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks to everybody who's been liking these videos. And there you go.